On a chilly morning just before dawn, when the first pale rays of sunlight barely brushed the sleepy town of Ashbourne in the English countryside, Detective Inspector Becca Harris received a call that would shake her very soul. Ashbourne was a quaint little place, known for its rolling green fields and close-knit community, the kind where everyone knew everyone else's business and secrets. Becca, a woman of formidable presence and unwavering resolve, was considered the toughest officer in the Ashbourne Police Department. She had only been on the force for a year, yet her sharp instincts and bold decisions had already earned her the respect, and sometimes fear, of her colleagues. The message over the radio was grim. In a remote hamlet several miles out, a young man had allegedly murdered his own mother. Becca's hand tightened on the steering wheel of her rugged Land Rover as she sped through the mist-laden lanes, the engine growling beneath her. Despite the early hour, she was dressed with meticulous care. Her tailored navy blue trench coat cinched at the waist, black leather gloves, and polished ankle boots with a modest heel that clicked confidently on the patrol station's stone floor. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a no-nonsense ponytail, and a simple silver pendant rested against her collarbone, glinting faintly in the dim light. Arriving at the scene, Becca was confronted by a harrowing sight. The victim, a woman in her late 40s, lay sprawled on the dew-damp grass, her body marked by deep, jagged wounds. Nearby stood a young man, no older than 22, clutching a heavy wooden baton, his hands trembling but his expression unreadable. The man's dark hair was tousled and his clothes, an old gray jumper and worn jeans, were stained with mud and something darker. "Drop the baton and come with us quietly," Becca commanded in a voice that brooked no argument without resistance. The young man let the baton clatter to the ground and lowered his head. Handcuffs clicked onto his wrists as Becca led him away. His name was Nathan Wells. There was no trace of fear or remorse in his eyes, only a hollow acceptance, as if fate had already sealed his destiny. At the Ashbourne police station, Nathan was placed in a small, windowless cell with only a narrow slit of light filtering through a barred window near the ceiling. Becca watched him carefully, intrigued despite herself. He spoke little but did not protest or deny the accusations. Hours passed before the forensic report came through, but the evidence seemed damning. The local magistrate, after a brief hearing, found Nathan guilty and sentenced him to death, a sentence rarely handed down in England these days, but the law still held firm in such rare, brutal cases under British law. Nathan was granted a 2-month reprieve before the execution, allowing time for an appeal and the fulfillment of any last wishes. That evening, a distraught woman arrived at the station, tears streaming down her face. She claimed her home had been broken into and all her savings stolen. Becca dispatched a search team immediately but stayed behind, unwilling to leave Nathan alone. Later, as Becca approached Nathan's cell for a routine check, she found him staring out the narrow window at the darkening sky. His voice was calm when she asked him if the sentence had broken his spirit. He smiled faintly, a strange serenity in his eyes. "My mother visits me in dreams every night," he said softly. "But there's no use in talking about it now." Before Becca could press further, the earlier theft complaint was debunked. The woman had withdrawn her money herself through her son. The case was closed, but her mind lingered on Nathan's words. Returning to the cell, Becca offered him a cup of tea, a rare kindness in the grim surroundings. "You have 2 months," she said. "Anything you want, any last wish, you can say it. The law says it must be granted." Nathan accepted the tea with a deep breath and then, with a quiet boldness, declared, "I wish to spend every night until my death with a virgin." Becca's face hardened momentarily. Such a request was beyond normal boundaries. She could have scolded him outright but instead held her tongue. "We can't just bring someone to you by force," she replied carefully. Nathan's lips curved into a thin smile. "Then why not you? You're not married, are you?" The room seemed to catch its breath. Becca felt a flush rise within her. Not from desire, but from an unexpected spark of something else. "I'll think about it," she said, turning away. That night, sleep eluded Becca. The line between duty and humanity blurred as she wrestled with the strange request. Could a last wish ever cross the boundaries of morality? Was there a way to honor the law and her conscience at once? Outside, the wind whispered through the ancient oaks surrounding the station, and Becca's thoughts circled back to Nathan's haunting smile. The story had reached a crossroads where every decision could open a new path, and with it, a new mystery waiting to be unraveled. The next morning, Ashbourne Police Station buzzed with the usual hum of activity. But Detective Inspector Becca Harris sat behind her desk, her mind miles away. The night's restless hours had left her weary, yet her thoughts were sharp, circling relentlessly around Nathan's unexpected request, and the haunting serenity in his eyes. The phrase "why not you?" echoed through her mind like a riddle wrapped in a challenge. Becca's usual steely composure softened slightly as she toyed absently with the silver pendant resting against her collarbone, a gift from her late grandmother, who had always believed in the power of faith and justice. Dressed that day in her standard police attire, a crisp white shirt, dark tailored trousers, and a deep burgundy blazer that accented her slender frame, Becca looked every inch the professional. Yet there was a subtle shift in her demeanor, an undercurrent of vulnerability that only those closest to her had ever glimpsed. Her black boots clicked purposefully as she moved through the station, but her step was heavier, burdened by the weight of moral conflict. Nathan, meanwhile, remained an enigma. During their brief conversations, he was elusive, weaving words like a poet but never revealing the full tapestry of his thoughts. Sometimes he spoke of his mother, sometimes of the villagers, and other times, in moments of rare candor, he admitted to accepting his fate. Yet beneath it all was a quiet dignity that defied the brutal accusations leveled against him. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled softly over the hills surrounding Ashbourne, Becca found herself standing outside Nathan's cell once more. She watched the rain trace lazy paths down the grimy window pane, blurring the world outside. Inside, Nathan sat cross-legged, his gaze fixed on the window's narrow strip of light. The cell was sparse, but his calmness filled the space like a fragile flame. "Oh, you remember your mother?" Becca asked quietly, breaking the silence. Nathan's eyes remained closed. "Every day," he said softly. "But it doesn't matter anymore." Becca nodded slowly, fighting back the sting of tears. "I might have treated this case like any other," she confessed, her voice trembling. "But you're more than just a file on my desk. I want to find the truth." Nathan's eyes opened then, meeting hers with a mix of hope and resignation. "No one believes me, not even you sometimes." She shook her head, feeling a surge of determination. "I'm going to prove your innocence. I promise." Over the following days, Becca submerged herself in the case files. Every detail, the forensic reports, phone records, witness statements, was scrutinized with relentless precision. Anomalies began to surface. The last call made from Nathan's mother's phone was to a local landowner named Barry Thacker, a man notorious in the village for his ruthless tactics and a string of disputes over property rights. Barry's reputation was as dark as the dense woods bordering the hamlet, and whispers of intimidation followed him like a shadow. Becca's gut told her Barry was connected to the murder in ways no one had dared to admit. She launched a covert investigation, gathering testimonies from reluctant villagers and piecing together a timeline that placed Barry near the victim's house on the night of the crime. Meanwhile, Nathan clung to his last wish. One evening, he approached Becca with a quiet smile. "Do you have any wishes, detective?" he asked, his voice gentle. Becca hesitated. "No," she replied. "Not anymore." He chuckled softly. "That's because I've fallen for you. I've never met a woman as fearless and honest as you." Becca's breath caught. Beneath the hardened exterior, she recognized the boy who had been crushed by circumstance but refused to let bitterness define him. That night, something shifted. Becca shed her uniform and draped herself in a soft, deep green silk dress that whispered against her skin like a secret. The fabric clung to her curves, falling just below her knees with a subtle slit that hinted at the strength beneath her elegance. Her chestnut hair cascaded loosely over her shoulders, catching the flickering candlelight in the interrogation room. She moved to Nathan's cell, her heart pounding not with fear but with a fragile trust. There was no coercion, no violence, only a shared silence filled with unspoken understanding. She sat beside him, listening to the faint tremor in his voice as he spoke of loss, hope, and redemption. The room, cold and sterile moments before, seemed to warm with the fragile bond forming between them. By morning, a light flickered in Nathan's eyes for the first time in weeks. "If you believe my story," he said, reaching out to take her hand, "give me a chance to prove my innocence." Becca squeezed his hand firmly. This is my fight now. The battle ahead would pit her against the very system she had sworn to uphold. A system quick to judge, slow to forgive. But Becca was unyielding, driven by a newfound purpose. As whispers from the village began to surface, an elderly neighbor's confession, shadowy figures lurking near the victim's home, and phone records contradicting previous claims, The truth started to emerge like a pale dawn breaking through a storm. Barry Thacker was arrested amid a media frenzy, and the case reopened. The court overturned Nathan's conviction, freeing him from the shadow of death. When Nathan stepped out of the courtroom, his eyes searched for Becca. Quietly he asked, "Did you save my life?" She smiled, the kind of smile that knows battles are not won in a day but through unyielding resolve. Justice isn't just a verdict. It's a fight between conscience and law. Months later, they were often seen together in Ashbourne, two figures bound by trust and a shared struggle, their connection unspoken yet palpable. Becca never spoke of marriage, and Nathan never asked. But those who watched them sensed a quiet peace that had been hard-won. Yet the story was far from over. One evening, as Becca locked up the station, a cryptic message flickered across her phone. A single word, "watch," behind it, a blurred image of a shadowed figure watching from the woods beyond the village. The past had not released its grip, and a new mystery loomed, one that promised to test their courage and faith once more. The following days in Ashbourne unfolded with an uneasy calm, but Detective Inspector Becca Harris could not shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beneath the surface. Her usual sharp gaze seemed to catch shadows where there were none, and the cryptic message on her phone, just the word "watch," gnawed at her thoughts like an uninvited guest refusing to leave. Becca's office was a sanctuary of order amidst the swirling chaos of the case. Stacks of files, neatly organized, sat beside a steaming mug of Earl Grey tea, the faint aroma mingling with the scent of old leather and polished wood. She wore a fitted charcoal gray pencil skirt paired with a soft cream blouse, the sleeves rolled up to reveal toned forearms, an unspoken testament to the battles she'd fought and those yet to come. Her dark chestnut hair was pinned loosely at the nape of her neck, a few rebellious strands framing her face, softening the steely determination in her hazel eyes. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets, Becca decided to follow the lead embedded in that mysterious warning. She drove out toward the fringes of the village, where the dense woodland met the fading light. The Land Rover's headlights sliced through the gathering dusk, illuminating twisted branches and the occasional startled rabbit darting away into the underbrush. She parked near the old Ashbourne Manor, a crumbling estate long abandoned but often whispered about in hushed tones by locals. It was said to be haunted, but Becca didn't believe in ghosts, only in the living, breathing dangers people were capable of. As she stepped out, the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The wind tugged playfully at her tailored coat, revealing the hint of a delicate silver bracelet encircling her wrist, a gift from Nathan, a silent reminder of their fragile bond. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes caught her attention. Becca's hand instinctively went to the pistol holstered at her hip. A figure emerged, a teenage girl soaked from the sudden downpour, eyes wide with fear. "I didn't mean to scare you," the girl stammered. "I saw something. Someone watching from the woods." Becca knelt to meet her gaze. "What did you see exactly?" The girl shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "A woman. But not like anyone I've seen before. Her face, it was twisted, almost animalistic. Like a nightmare come to life." Becca's pulse quickened. Was this a trick of the mind, fueled by the village's superstitions? Or was there a darker truth hidden in the shadows? Back at the station, Becca pored over reports of missing persons and strange sightings. An unsettling pattern emerged. Several young women had disappeared over the past months, their last known locations all near the outskirts of Ashbourne. The locals whispered about a curse, but Becca knew better. Evil wore a human face. Her thoughts drifted to Nathan, now free but still haunted by his past. She remembered the quiet dignity in his eyes, the way his hand had sought hers in the cold cell. Their connection was fragile but real, a lifeline in a world that often felt merciless. That night Becca returned home to her modest cottage on the edge of town. The warm glow from the fireplace cast flickering shadows across the walls lined with bookshelves and photographs. She changed into a deep red silk blouse and black trousers, the fabric soft against her skin, a subtle invitation to both comfort and strength. As she sat by the window, sipping her tea, her phone buzzed again. This time a short video played. A glimpse of the shadowed woman from the woods, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, lips curled into a cruel smile. Becca's breath caught. This was no mere superstition. Something truly malevolent was stirring. Determined to uncover the truth, Becca reached out to Nathan. Their meeting was arranged in the quiet corner of a local cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and the comforting scent of freshly baked scones. Nathan arrived, looking lean but stronger, his dark eyes sharp beneath the tousled hair. "I've heard about the sightings," Nathan said quietly. "The village fears what it doesn't understand. But I think there's more to it." Becca nodded. "I need your insight. You know Ashbourne better than anyone." Nathan's gaze softened as he looked at her. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Outside, the rain began again, a steady drumbeat against the windowpane. Inside, two unlikely allies prepared to confront an ancient darkness that threatened to consume their town and their souls. But as the clock struck midnight, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the empty streets of Ashbourne, shattering the fragile calm in the shadows. The hunt had begun, and somewhere, watching, waiting, the creature smiled. The scream tore through the stillness of Ashbourne like a jagged blade, slicing the night's fragile calm into shreds. Detective Inspector Becca Harris sat bolt upright in her modest cottage, the half-empty cup of tea trembling in her hand. Outside, the rain pounded on the roof in a relentless rhythm, mixing with the distant echoes of hurried footsteps and frantic voices. She slipped into her dark leather jacket, one that had seen more than a few late-night chases, and grabbed her keys. The chill of the night air hit her as she stepped outside, the streets slick with rain and shrouded in mist. Her boots splashed through puddles as she sprinted toward the source of the cry, heart hammering not just from exertion but from an intuition that something terrible was unfolding. The narrow lanes of Ashbourne twisted and turned like the veins of some ancient creature, and Becca's keen eyes searched every shadow. A crowd had gathered near the old churchyard, faces pale and anxious, umbrellas forgotten as they huddled close. At the center lay a young woman unconscious, her delicate features streaked with dirt and tears. Her dress, once white but now muddied and torn, clung to her slender frame. A silver locket hung broken around her neck, glinting faintly under the flickering street lamp. Becca knelt beside her, checking for signs of life. The girl's breathing was shallow but steady. "Who found her?" Becca asked, scanning the crowd. A trembling voice answered, "I did, ma'am. She was just lying there, mumbling something about a woman with a monkey's face." Becca frowned, the hairs on the back of her neck prickling. The description matched the eerie figure from the videos and the terrified girl in the woods. The same nightmare that had been stalking Ashbourne. "We need an ambulance now," Becca ordered, her voice cutting through the murmurs. As the paramedics arrived, she stood, her mind racing. This was no ordinary crime. This was something old, something dark that had clawed its way into the heart of the village. Returning to the police station, Becca found Nathan waiting. His eyes were sharp, reflecting the storm raging both outside and within the community. "Another victim," he said quietly. "This thing is real." Becca nodded grimly. "And it's getting bolder." Over the next days their investigation deepened. Becca and Nathan combed through village records, interviewed terrified residents, and retraced the paths of the missing. The threads began to weave into a chilling tapestry, one of betrayal, hidden sins, and a curse that had lain dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Becca's nights grew restless. She would lie awake, the image of the monkey-faced woman haunting her dreams, her glowing eyes staring into the abyss. Yet amidst the darkness, Nathan's steady presence was a beacon. Their connection deepened, forged in fire and fear, a delicate dance of trust and unspoken longing. One evening, Becca stood before the ancient oak in the village square, its gnarled branches silhouetted against a blood-red moon. Draped in a flowing midnight blue cloak that shimmered faintly, she felt the weight of history pressing down upon her. Around her neck, the silver pendant gleamed, both a talisman and a reminder of the fight ahead. Suddenly, a whisper brushed her ear, a voice both human and otherworldly. "You cannot escape what has been set in motion." Spinning around, Becca faced the darkness. The monkey-faced woman stepped from the shadows, her twisted smile revealing sharp, uneven teeth. Her eyes burned with a malevolent light. Becca drew her breath, steadying herself. "This ends tonight." The creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Brave but foolish. You do not understand the power you challenge." Behind Becca, footsteps echoed. Nathan appeared, his expression steel and resolve. Together they faced the nightmare that threatened to consume Ashbourne. But as the clock struck midnight, a chilling realization dawned. The true enemy was not just the creature before them, but the secrets buried deep within the village, and within themselves. The battle for Ashbourne's soul was only beginning. The moon hung low and heavy over Ashbourne, casting its pale glow through the mist that curled like spectral fingers around the ancient oaks lining the village square. Detective Inspector Becca Harris stood shoulder to shoulder with Nathan Wells, their breaths mingling in the cold night air, hearts pounding in unison. The creature before them, the twisted woman with a face distorted like a monkey's, eyes burning with a cruel fire, was more than a mere specter of local legend. It was a manifestation of something far darker, rooted in the tangled history of the village and its buried sins. Becca's midnight blue cloak billowed softly in the chill breeze, its silky sheen catching the light like a promise of strength. Her sharp hazel eyes never wavered from the creature's glowing gaze. The silver pendant at her throat caught the moonlight, a talisman against the encroaching darkness. Nathan's presence beside her was a steadying anchor, his lean frame coiled with tension, yet his dark eyes held a spark of unyielding resolve. The creature hissed, the sound like shattered glass scraping stone. "You think you can stop what has been set in motion? Ashbourne's soul is already tainted." Becca drew a slow breath, the calm before a storm. "Maybe," she said evenly, "but I won't let this evil consume any more lives." Nathan stepped forward, voice low and steady. "You don't belong here. Leave this place or face justice." The creature's twisted lips curled into a savage grin. "Justice? There is none here. Only pain, betrayal, and despair." Suddenly the ground beneath them trembled, a deep rumble shaking loose dead leaves and stirring the mist. From the shadows around the square, figures cloaked in dark robes emerged, villagers, faces obscured, eyes cold and unblinking. They circled the three, their murmurs rising into a chant that echoed off the timbers of the nearby church. Becca's heart raced. The village's ancient secrets were awakening, and they had drawn a line in the sand. She exchanged a glance with Nathan. "We're not alone in this." Nathan nodded, tightening his grip on the small, worn book he carried. The old village records filled with cryptic notes and forgotten truths. "We need to break the curse. Find the source." The chanting grew louder, the circle tightening. Becca's mind raced back to the stories she'd heard. Tales of a betrayed woman, scorned and wronged, who had cursed Ashbourne before vanishing into the woods centuries ago. "Show yourself," Becca demanded, voice ringing clear and strong from the center of the circle. A figure stepped forward. An elderly woman with piercing eyes and a face lined by time and sorrow. Her voice cut through the night like a blade. "You meddle in things beyond your ken, Inspector. This darkness is old, born of blood and betrayal. Only by uncovering the truth buried beneath Ashbourne can you hope to stop it." Becca felt a chill. The battle was not just against the creature, but against the shadows woven into the fabric of the village itself. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the square, revealing a hidden tombstone half buried beneath ivy, its inscription worn but legible. Eleanor Blackwood, 1723. A name whispered in forgotten prayers. Nathan's voice was barely more than a breath. "The woman who cursed Ashbourne." Becca stepped forward, fingers brushing the cold stone. "We have to find the truth behind Eleanor Blackwood's curse. Only then can we end this nightmare." The villagers' chanting faltered, their eyes widening. The ancient power that had gripped Ashbourne was tied to a story long buried. A story of love, betrayal, and vengeance. As the storm surged, Becca and Nathan knew their fight was far from over. The darkness was rooted deep, and to save Ashbourne, they would have to confront not only the spectral terror before them but the sins of generations past. The night crackled with tension, shadows dancing like living things, and somewhere, hidden in the depths of the ancient woods, a secret waited to be uncovered, one that could either save them or doom them all.